Look, it's a tree. And it's spooky. And we're going to build it. Before we get started though, please note this is not a block for block tutorial, but rather I will be teaching you various techniques so that you too can build your very own spooky tree. We're going to be doing it in a flat world because it will be much easier for you to see what I am doing here. These are the blocks that I will be using. I'm going to be using nether brick, cherry wood, and black terracotta. I'm going to start the main tree shape using the cherry wood, and then we'll add other details to it later. When I get started on this tree, I'm going to start on a diagonal just because I think trees look better when you do them on a diagonal. If we can just start getting this curving shape going, that will help us at least get started at the base. And then I'm going to start lifting it up, making it very two-dimensional to start, and figuring out the shape or the basic path of the tree. If you want it to be a leaning tree, you could have it leaning way off to the side. I'm not going to do the top branches just yet. First, I want to finish figuring out the base of the tree, because this is kind of the hardest. Depending on how tall you want your tree to be will also determine how thick the base is. So the thicker you make the base, the taller you will want your tree to be. I'm not sure how thick to make it, so I'm starting off with this size. And of course, it's going to be a little bit thicker at the base where the roots start to protrude. And I'm going to pick a width for the trunk. This is a good start right here. Whatever this ends up being will determine how tall the rest of the tree is, because you have to kind of build the tree out based on what you've already established for that tree. So there is no set method or size. You kind of have to eyeball it and know what works. Now I'm going to start adding some gnarly branches, and there's no set way to do this, but I'm going to think about them in terms of being curved shapes, except the one that we want to be the tallest in the middle. We want to make sure we at least have one that kind of goes in the middle of the tree, whether it's leaning or straight. And this one won't curve as much as the others just because I want it to stand out from the rest, but I will give it a slight curve, something like that. Aside from that, I'm going to start adding some big branches, and they're going to curve up as well, kind of like a little hook shape, but not too much of a hook. We don't want it to end like this because we're going to be adding more to it later. So we'll just kind of have it curve up or something like that and end it. Then we can build some off of this that go down and up again. Again, there's no set method for this, but I think this pattern works well. If we have some twisting up, some kind of twisting down and up. Since we're not going to be adding any leaves to this tree, the more dynamic we can make the branches, the better it will look. And you'll see me deleting these extra blocks in the corner because sometimes it looks a bit too bulky to have too many blocks going on the corners, and that's just a personal preference, but you can leave some of these blocks here. But if you want to look a little thinner, then you might want to take off some of those blocks on the corners. And be sure as you're building it that you're making a nice full tree with this. So far all of my branches are closer to the front or leaning to the front. So we'll need to add some in the back to fill it in. And take your time with this. It's not an easy process or a quick process to build a tree in creative or survival. It's going to be a very slow and tedious process, and the greater care you take in this shaping part, the better the tree will look. Alright, I think I have too many branches on this side, at least when I was looking at it from the front. They seemed a bit crowded. Let me see how that looks. See how they're all touching there? That's just me being very picky. I think it would look better if they were more spaced out. Alright, I do need to fix my trunk a little bit. See how it's really thin here and then it gets thick again? I want to fix that so that it is thicker still at the base. I'm just going to add to it here. And it's this block here, it's kind of messed up. And remember, the cherry wood I'm using here is just a placeholder. Eventually we'll go back and texture all of this. I'm not really good at texturing on the fly, so I like to get my shape figured out first, and then I'll go back and texture it. I think I need more of a twist here, so I'm going to bring this down and bring this part down. So I want this tree to twist a little more right there. And we can bring everything else down with it. It's really funny, whenever I'm practicing building these, I do it really quickly as a test, and I'm able to do it flawlessly the first time. And then when I sit to record a tree, for some reason, I'm pickier about it and I struggle with it more. Oh, the joys of making these tree tutorials. Once you get those branches looking pretty good, all twisty and gnarly and filling in quite a bit of spaces, I'm going to take the nether brick fence and start adding smaller branches to these. Here's my little formula for how to add these. I'm going to take each big branch, follow the path it's on, see how this one's ending kind of on an upward angle. So I'm going to continue that branch on an upward angle with just a few nether brick fences, something like that. And there's no set amount for how many fences you put there, but I think that's a good amount. It's just supposed to look like it's gradually getting thinner toward the top. And with nether brick, you could, if you really wanted to, mix in some walls too, because we do have that option with the nether brick. But I'm just going to stick with fences because I think it's fine for this scale. So again, with all of these other ones, see how you ended the previous angle and kind of follow along with that. We're going to start with this formula and then we can add additional branches onto it later after this. So for this one, it's kind of angling down, so I can either start it on one of these sides and just continue that downward angle. This one's angling up, so I'm going to continue angling it up. This one kind of goes up and then over, so you could make it either curve around that way, or I'm probably going to make it curve around this way because that's kind of the trend I started there. And then this tall one here is going up. And this one here also going up, although I might angle it a bit for more interest. Now we've got a thin branch on the end of all of the big branches, and it will look something like this. And now I'm going to take each of those big branches and I'm going to make at least one or two other branches going off of it. And we're also going to follow that curving pattern or shape. So wherever you start your branch, just pick either a curve down or a curve up, and we'll just continue that whole process. So this one, I'm having it curve down. And I don't know if I want to put another on that branch, but we'll see if I have room. Let's start with one on this side. This one was also going to curve down, or maybe I'll have it curve up because that one's curving down. So I could have it going down and up, something like that. This one's already going down. Maybe we'll do one going up. It also depends on what ends up looking good. So if you try one shape and it just doesn't look good from the ground or wherever you're viewing it from, feel free to just try the opposite direction or a different approach. The nice thing about this tree, is that it doesn't have leaves, because you can spend as much time as you want on this stage and then you'll basically be done with it. So that is nice. You'll also notice I typically like to end the branches on a single fence where it's not connected. I know I didn't do that here, but typically that's what I try to do, because then you're ending it off at the skinniest possible block. Although I think I'm gonna leave that one because I think that one looks fine. And let me just continue this. It's looking really nice, but I'm gonna fly around and see if there's any branches that I could add. I think over here, I think I will add another one. It looks a bit empty. And maybe one here in the middle going up. So we'll have this one going off into the middle because there was a huge gap right here in the middle. And I think that looks pretty good. Looks pretty gnarly. And that is pretty much it for the branches. However much detail you want to add here, if you want to go in and add some slabs or stairs, you're welcome to. But honestly, if you're doing it at this scale, it might be fine without it. But if you really want more detail, you can use the nether brick stairs and slabs, and walls for that matter, to add some. If I wanted to put a wall here to connect those corners so it wasn't floating as much, you're welcome to do something like that if it bothers you. Sometimes I do that with my trees, but you don't have to do it everywhere either, just in key places. It's also good to note that you might want to do fewer branches than this even. This was quite a lot, but maybe it's just because it's not spread out as much. I'm seeing a problem when I'm standing here, how these branches are kind of almost connecting in a circle visually, and that bothers me. So what I'm going to do is adjust this one here to be off to the side, but still going up, just not as much. Oh, that looks so much better. Yes. I'm very picky with my trees, as you can tell. Next, we can start to add some extra texture to this tree, and I'm going to start with the nether brick. So we're going to have the cherry wood up there fade into nether brick. So starting midway on the tree, I'm going to replace some of these with nether brick. There actually is no set order to this. I'm basically just creating a gradient from the cherry wood down to the black terracotta, which we'll eventually add. But I like to start off by filling in the nether brick here. I'm not doing the very base of the tree because that's where the black terracotta will go. Whatever order you want to do this in, it's up to you. This is kind of like the highlight at the base, but it will be the shadow up here. So I'm going to add just a few blocks up here on these bigger branches, like so. I don't want to do them on all of the branches, just at these bigger ones. Then I can take my black terracotta and fill in all of the lowest blocks in here. Or if it's easier to start from the bottom and go up, you could do that too. I keep readjusting the shape of my tree down here because I'm never satisfied with it right away. I wish I could be, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. And then you'll get something like this, and we can keep adjusting our shadow however much we want. If you wanted to go a shade darker, you could add some black concrete in there. Then I'm going to take nether brick slabs, and if you want to add just a few extra roots to this, you can, but don't go too far out. Depending on how tall your tree is, will determine how many of those roots you should put down. But I think 1 to 2 on each end with this size tree is good. And I don't know how tall this tree is, but I can measure it real quick for you. This tree is 27 blocks tall, and I just realized I don't like this part of the trunk, so hold on. Hold on, I'm going to fix it once again. Okay, I had to bring in my sample tree just so we can compare the first tree I built to this one I just built in this recording. This was my test tree when I was trying out this idea, and you can see how different it looks. I was following the same concepts for both, but you can see how subtle differences make a huge difference. This one is a little bit stockier, not quite as tall. You know what? I think this one right here, I'm going to change it so that it does go up. Yep, I think that looks better. I'm really bad at this, everybody. I cannot stop tweaking my tree because I'm so picky. I'm such a perfectionist. Every time you build a tree, though, it's going to look different, and that's the beauty of these tree tutorials, is I'm trying to teach you technique over copying me exactly, because once you understand a technique, you can just make up a tree and they'll all look unique, and they'll just make your world look so much better when you're not just copying and pasting the same tree over and over. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. These 2 trees were my first attempts at this design, and they didn't turn out quite like I was hoping. I may have to revisit this in the future if I do come up with a better design. But for now, this is what we have, and it's still not a bad design, especially when you put it in an actual Minecraft world and turn on the shaders. It looks much better, I think, in this setting. Feel free to check out some other tree tutorials of mine or other building tutorials. I hope you have a good day or night, and have fun building.